Within Johnny Carson's private memories existed a carefully guarded collection of 7 extraordinary women who captivated not just Hollywood, but the heart of television's most composed host. During his remarkable reign on The Tonight Show, Carson interviewed countless glamorous stars. Yet these 7 particular women possessed something rare: the ability to break through his legendary cool demeanor and reveal genuine emotion on live television. Secret encounters across the years, moments of visible nervousness, and decade-long efforts just to secure a single appearance. These weren't merely famous actresses. They were the women who reached past Carson's professional armor and touched something real within him, making him fumble, smile genuinely, or pause in admiration before millions of viewers. This isn't simply a celebration of beauty. It's the story of 7 remarkable women who made the master of late-night television reveal the vulnerable man beneath the polished persona. 1. Ann-Margret, the red-headed dynamite and 30 years of trust. When Ann-Margret stepped onto the Tonight Show set, Studio One seemed to vibrate with a different energy. She wasn't merely a triple-threat entertainer with mesmerizing dance moves. She was someone who understood Johnny Carson's hidden complexity in ways few ever could. During the 1970s, Ann-Margret embodied fierce talent and vulnerability combined. Her performances in films like Carnal Knowledge proved she could deliver dramatic depth while maintaining breathtaking star power. But on Carson's couch, she always appeared with natural warmth and quick intelligence that perfectly matched his humor. Industry insiders whispered that watching Johnny with Ann-Margret felt less like a standard interview and more like witnessing 2 old friends who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. To grasp Ann-Margret's significance, consider a revealing moment from backstage in 1982. Carson was navigating intense pressure, network competition intensifying, and personal troubles mounting. That evening, Ann-Margret was scheduled as the lead guest. On camera, they sparkled with their usual chemistry, trading laughs and stories effortlessly. But once filming wrapped and crew members began clearing the set, something unexpected occurred. Rather than departing immediately with her team, Ann-Margret quietly returned to Johnny's private quarters. A stage manager recalled the unusual silence. No typical post-show banter. Ann-Margret simply made herself comfortable, shared some bourbon, and began reminiscing about their early encounters in the 1960s. For nearly an hour, she offered no advice or empty reassurances. She just allowed Johnny to drop his television persona and be human. This moment demonstrated why Ann-Margret transcended typical guest status. She served as an anchor for Johnny's soul. Johnny's admiration for Ann-Margret extended beyond her obvious talents and striking appearance. He valued her understanding of isolation. Ann-Margret later reflected that Johnny existed on his own island, and she felt privileged to occasionally visit. Whenever Ann-Margret appeared, Johnny requested specific camera angles to capture his reaction as she entered. Audiences witnessed his most authentic smile, not scripted, but genuinely pleased to see someone who brought comfort amid the entertainment industry's demands. Ann-Margret never needed official recognition or grand gestures to prove her importance. She chose to be a trusted confidant and source of healing. That deep connection placed her first among Johnny Carson's 7 cherished stars. Because while Hollywood offered endless beauty, souls that truly resonated with his loneliness were exceptionally rare. 2. Catherine Deneuve, the French enigma, who left him speechless. If Ann-Margret represented warmth and understanding, then our second woman embodied cool European sophistication that rendered Carson momentarily powerless. Catherine Deneuve, France's legendary ice-blonde beauty, became the only guest to create one of television's most memorable moments of host speechlessness. Behind his confident exterior, Carson occasionally experienced private uncertainty when facing certain types of beauty. A production assistant from NBC recalled an evening in 1969 when the atmosphere in Johnny's dressing room felt unusually charged. Carson paced restlessly rather than sitting calmly for makeup preparation. Catherine Deneuve was arriving, the actress gracing magazine covers worldwide. Hearing footsteps approaching from the guest area, Johnny stopped moving. He exhaled slowly, turned toward his longtime producer, and remarked with uncharacteristic nervousness that he might need a moment to compose himself. Rarely did people witness their confident host rattled before even meeting someone. When studio lights illuminated and Catherine Deneuve descended in an elegant cream ensemble perfectly showcasing her legendary grace, the audience erupted. But attention quickly shifted to Johnny's expression. Instead of launching into his typical witty opening, Carson did something remarkable. He said absolutely nothing. Johnny remained motionless, eyes wide, simply observing Catherine as she settled onto the guest couch. He glanced at the camera, back to Catherine, then at the camera again. The pause stretched nearly half a minute while the audience roared with laughter. Johnny communicated volumes through silence and facial expressions alone. When Catherine smiled and began speaking in her distinctive accent, Johnny reached for his water glass, taking a long drink before fanning himself as though the temperature had suddenly spiked. Viewers can still watch this footage and observe Johnny's genuine reaction, remarkable for someone with thousands of broadcasting hours. Yet, Catherine Deneuve earned her place among Johnny's 7 favorites through more than stunning looks. Johnny was captivated by her intelligence and quiet strength. Throughout their conversation, when Johnny attempted his usual playful teasing about her image, Catherine responded with dignity and substance. She refused to play the role of merely decorative guest. One memorable exchange occurred when Johnny joked about European cinema. Catherine looked directly at him and spoke thoughtfully about artistic integrity and the challenges of maintaining creative control in film. That seriousness and depth completely shifted Johnny's approach from flirtation to genuine respect. After filming concluded, witnesses reported Carson sat quietly for some time after Catherine departed. He picked up his notes, shook his head, and laughed to himself. That evening, the king understood certain people aren't meant to be conquered, only appreciated. Catherine Deneuve holds second position because she represents otherworldly elegance and strength. She alone could transform the powerful host into a temporarily confused man with mere presence, while simultaneously commanding his deepest respect for the formidable spirit behind that porcelain perfection. 3. Julie Andrews, pure grace in the meeting. He treasured our third woman brings an entirely different quality, not dramatic intensity, but crystalline sweetness and light representing the best of classic Hollywood values. Julie Andrews, beloved for her pure voice and wholesome image, embodied the idealized dreams that Johnny Carson cherished throughout his career. In an industry full of calculation and manufactured personas, Julie Andrews appeared like genuine sunshine, with shining eyes, a radiant smile, and talent that seemed effortless. She represented kindness and timeless values. But for Johnny personally, Julie wasn't merely another acclaimed performer. She symbolized everything beautiful that a boy from the Midwest might have dreamed about. Johnny often mentioned having admired Julie since watching her on Broadway. Remarkably, that admiration never diminished even after he became television's most influential figure. Securing Julie Andrews for The Tonight Show required considerable effort throughout the 1970s. As Julie became more selective about public appearances, focusing on family and chosen projects, she declined most interview requests despite generous offers. NBC staff recalled that whenever potential guest names circulated, Johnny would personally highlight Julie Andrews' name with a hopeful notation. Stories emerged that in 1977, knowing Julie had a new project, Johnny personally directed his team to prepare the guest area with special attention. Her preferred flowers, adjusted lighting to ensure she'd look perfect, even checking sound levels for her comfort. A makeup artist remarked having never seen Johnny so concerned about every detail, checking arrangements like someone preparing for the most important evening of his life. The anticipated moment arrived on a winter evening in 1977. When the band began playing familiar melodies and Julie Andrews' name was announced, the entire studio audience rose in sustained applause. Julie walked out, graceful and approachable, greeting everyone warmly. That broadcast revealed a different Johnny Carson. Gone was the sharp-edged interviewer who enjoyed clever verbal sparring. Johnny gazed at Julie with obvious reverence, opening with heartfelt sincerity. "Julie, this has been a long time coming." Throughout their conversation, Johnny abandoned his typical interview tactics. He allowed Julie to guide discussions, listening intently as she spoke about her theatrical work and family life. At one point, Johnny held her latest album, his hands slightly unsteady, a subtle detail revealing genuine emotion beneath his professional polish. Viewers could clearly perceive that for Johnny, the woman sitting across from him wasn't merely promoting a project. She represented nostalgia for a more innocent, beautiful era. Johnny's affection for Julie Andrews also stemmed from her humility. Though Johnny offered lavish praise for her extraordinary career, Julie maintained modest demeanor, sometimes appearing genuinely embarrassed by compliments. That unpretentious authenticity won Johnny over completely. He respected how she'd prioritized meaningful living over Hollywood excess. Johnny later told colleagues that while many people are beautiful, very few radiate the comforting warmth of a peaceful Sunday morning. Julie Andrews embodied that feeling. When filming concluded, staff recorded Johnny personally escorting Julie to her car, exceptionally rare for someone of his stature. He watched until the vehicle disappeared into the night before returning inside. Julie Andrews ranks third because she represents purity and kindness itself. She remained the untarnished ideal Johnny wanted to preserve amid fame's harsh realities. Her presence carried pristine elegance. Even as years passed, for Johnny Carson, she would forever be a cherished dream, a never-dimming light warming the heart of that Nebraska boy within cold Hollywood. 4. Jacqueline Bisset, the British Rose with timeless elegance. Throughout his distinguished career, Johnny Carson met everyone from world leaders to cinema's brightest talents. But Jacqueline Bisset always represented something special, a rare combination of natural beauty, British sophistication, and unpretentious charm that captivated him completely. Unlike stars who constantly sought publicity, Jacqueline Bisset remained somewhat mysterious, carefully choosing her appearances. For Johnny, securing Jacqueline on his show wasn't merely about ratings, it fulfilled a professional aspiration. NBC security personnel often recounted with great detail a memorable evening in 1978 when Jacqueline made one of her infrequent Tonight Show appearances. Studio One buzzed with unusual anticipation. Production staff meticulously prepared everything. Proper lighting to showcase her natural beauty without harshness, comfortable seating arrangements, and even special refreshments. Johnny was observed reviewing his preparation materials repeatedly. He instructed his team that tonight they were welcoming someone extraordinary, and every element needed perfection. His expression held unusual focus, like someone preparing for a significant occasion. When Jacqueline Bisset entered wearing an understated but stunning dark ensemble, the studio seemed to collectively pause, absorbing her effortless elegance. That evening's viewers witnessed something special. Johnny Carson, typically confident and controlling, appeared genuinely humbled and respectful. He stood to greet her with a warm, admiring smile. Once Jacqueline was seated, her natural grace filled the space, prompting Johnny to remark sincerely about how she elevated the entire atmosphere. Throughout their interview, Johnny employed no sharp wit or celebrity roasting. Instead, he guided their conversation with genuine appreciation and gentleness. He asked about her film work, her thoughts on acting, and her perspective on fame, all with careful attentiveness. Viewers noticed Johnny leaning forward throughout, maintaining eye contact as if genuinely absorbed by everything she said. This was dialogue between equals, where humor gave way to mutual respect. What secured Jacqueline Bisset's firm position among Johnny's 7 favorites was her authenticity. Johnny greatly admired how Jacqueline navigated Hollywood's pressures while maintaining dignity and privacy. She never played games or manufactured drama. She simply remained herself, talented, intelligent, and gracious. During that appearance, Jacqueline skillfully balanced discussing her work while maintaining boundaries about her private life, a quality Johnny deeply respected. He understood the value of protecting one's inner world from public consumption. After the show concluded, Johnny kept a photograph from that evening as a memento. He once confided to close friends that Jacqueline Bisset represented a disappearing type of class, someone whose beauty came from both appearance and character. Jacqueline Bisset stands fourth because she represents sophisticated grace and genuine substance. While other women might embody different qualities, Jacqueline represented timeless elegance, beauty that deepens rather than fades, combined with intelligence and authenticity that commanded lasting admiration. 5. Sophia Loren, the Italian goddess who melted his cool. Throughout his career, Johnny Carson maintained an image of polished control and confident Midwestern charm. But whenever Sophia Loren's name appeared on guest schedules, Johnny experienced a fascinating transformation. To him, Sophia wasn't merely an Academy Award-winning actress. She embodied a vibrant, passionate world that fascinated this thoroughly American host. A little-known backstage story from the early 1980s reveals Johnny's unusual preparation when Sophia was scheduled to discuss her memoir. An audio technician recalled Carson remaining in his dressing room longer than typical. Instead of just scanning guest information, Johnny asked an Italian-speaking NBC employee to teach him basic phrases. Johnny stood before mirrors, carefully practicing. Buonasera, Sophia. Sei bellissima. Good evening, Sophia. You are beautiful. He rehearsed with such concentration as though preparing crucial remarks. However, when Sophia Loren actually arrived, impressive in height, with striking features and captivating presence filling the hallway, Johnny's preparation vanished. The Italian phrases he'd carefully learned disappeared from memory. He could only manage simple English. Hello, Sophia, followed by self-conscious laughter at his own nervousness. Witnesses to this moment understood. Before a true icon, even meticulous preparation becomes inadequate. When Sophia Loren walked onto the stage, the studio erupted. She radiated Mediterranean warmth and vitality, not just beautiful, but alive with energy and spirit. That evening's audience watched one of The Tonight Show's most endearing interviews. Johnny Carson used his own overwhelmed state to generate tremendous laughter. He constantly made self-deprecating jokes about his Midwestern background, comparing himself to someone hopelessly out of his depth. A classic moment occurred when Johnny asked Sophia about maintaining her legendary beauty. Sophia answered with her famous philosophy about pasta and good living. Johnny laughed heartily, turning to the camera and announcing he'd be changing his entire diet immediately. Viewers could clearly observe Johnny's genuine respect for Sophia. He didn't merely see her as physically beautiful. He admired a woman who'd risen from wartime poverty to become an international icon. Their interaction carried unique chemistry. On one side, American wit and intelligence. On the other, Italian warmth and authenticity. Together, they created wonderful moments that transcended typical celebrity interviews. What completely captured Johnny's heart was Sophia's fearless honesty. Johnny detested phoniness, and Sophia was extraordinarily genuine. She spoke freely about difficult childhood experiences, early career struggles, and motherhood challenges. Johnny later shared with colleagues that Sophia's beauty came from embracing her entire life story. She possessed inner strength you could feel simply from her presence. That fierce authenticity made Johnny, typically reserved and distant, feel strangely connected. Sophia Loren wasn't a delicate flower needing protection, but a resilient spirit, brilliant and strong. After every interview with Sophia, Johnny carried extraordinary energy. He often joked with audiences that talking with her made him feel years younger. For Johnny, Sophia Loren represented life's joy and tireless passion. Sophia Loren was the only one who made Johnny feel positively overwhelmed, not intimidated, but exhilarated. She brought enjoyment and vitality that was infectious and life-affirming. 6. Grace Kelly, the untouchable princess who remained a dream. Before she became Princess Grace of Monaco, Grace Kelly represented Hollywood's most refined elegance. Though her film career was brief, her impact was eternal, and on Johnny Carson, she left an indelible impression that lasted throughout his life. Grace Kelly's transition from acclaimed actress to actual royalty happened before Carson's Tonight Show reign began, meaning he never interviewed her during his tenure. Yet she remained one of his most cherished favorites, proof that Carson's admiration sometimes transcended actual encounters. Johnny often spoke wistfully about Grace Kelly in conversations with colleagues and during reflective show moments. She represented an ideal, beauty combined with dignity, talent paired with grace, and ultimately, the fairy tale ending of becoming genuine royalty. Staff members recalled Johnny keeping a framed photograph from Grace Kelly's Hollywood era in his private office. It wasn't displayed prominently, but kept in a desk drawer he'd occasionally open during quiet moments. A longtime assistant mentioned Johnny once remarked that Grace Kelly represented what Hollywood was supposed to be, magic that became real. Though they never shared a Tonight Show interview, Johnny attended a charity event in the late 1970s where Princess Grace appeared. Witnesses described Johnny, usually composed in any social setting, becoming noticeably anxious before their brief introduction. When finally presented to her, Johnny, master of quick wit, found himself simply saying how honored he was to meet her, speaking with genuine reverence rarely heard in his voice. Princess Grace, gracious as always, thanked him and mentioned enjoying his show. That brief exchange, lasting perhaps 2 minutes, remained something Johnny treasured. He later told Ed McMahon that meeting her felt like encountering someone from another better era. Johnny's admiration for Grace Kelly stemmed from what she represented. The idea that true class never fades, that some people elevate everything around them simply through their presence, and that real fairy tales occasionally happen to deserving people. Grace Kelly holds 6th position, not because of extensive interviews or long friendship, but because she embodied an ideal that Johnny held sacred throughout his career. She represented untouchable perfection, beauty, talent, grace, and destiny, combining into something almost mythical. Even after her tragic death in 1982, Johnny kept that photograph. Grace Kelly remained forever in his mind as Hollywood's ultimate achievement, the star who became an actual princess and never lost her dignity. 7. Loren Bacall, the commanding presence who earned complete respect. To conclude this collection of 7 legendary women, we arrive at someone who didn't need warmth or vulnerability to conquer Johnny Carson. This woman won the king's heart with the sharpest weapon possible, formidable intelligence, and unshakable class. Loren Bacall possessed the look that shook cinema and a powerful, distinctive voice, the only person who made Johnny Carson admit that some women don't need protection, they command respect. In Johnny Carson's world, superficial beauty meant nothing without substance. Johnny treated everyone politely, but he only truly admired women with sharp minds and the ability to match him intellectually. Loren Bacall was that ideal, emerging brilliantly from cinema's golden age alongside legendary Humphrey Bogart, carrying the spirit of an era where strength and dignity mattered most. To Johnny, Loren wasn't merely a star. She was a challenge he eagerly welcomed whenever she agreed to appear. Technical staff at Studio One often recounted a classic backstage incident from 1985 when Loren was preparing to discuss her new book. Unlike guests anxiously adjusting their appearance in green rooms, Loren sat calmly reading a newspaper, wearing reading glasses, completely composed as if in her own home. When Johnny Carson walked past and popped in to offer his usual friendly greeting, he attempted a playful joke to lighten the mood. Johnny asked teasingly whether she planned to devastate him with those legendary eyes or that intimidating voice. Loren didn't glance up. She lowered her newspaper, fixing Johnny with her famous penetrating gaze over her glasses, sharp as steel and radiating power. She responded in her signature husky voice that if Johnny continued talking nonsense, she'd go on stage and tell the audience how nervous he'd been at their first meeting. Johnny Carson, master of quick responses, suddenly stopped. He laughed heartily, but with genuine deference. He turned to his assistant and whispered that one should never joke with royalty without expecting consequences. That evening, Johnny approached the stage with unusual care, knowing he'd face someone who never tolerated superficiality. When Loren Bacall walked on stage, she moved deliberately, with measured elegance in her perfectly tailored outfit. Tonight, show audiences always loved conversations between Johnny and Loren because they resembled intellectual chess matches. Johnny Carson typically opened by asking about Humphrey Bogart or Golden Age memories, but Loren skillfully guided discussions toward current events, politics, or theater with remarkable sharpness. Johnny frequently attempted light flirtation, but Loren immediately countered with brief, intelligent, powerful responses. Once, Johnny asked how she maintained composure amid Hollywood chaos. Loren looked directly at him and replied, By learning to recognize phonies, Johnny. You're quite good at that yourself, aren't you? The studio erupted because her observation landed perfectly. Instead of taking offense, Johnny nodded in admiration. He loved how Loren saw through pretense, how she never performed to please audiences. Johnny's fascination with Loren Bacall centered on respect for genuine class. Loren was the only woman who made Johnny Carson feel he needed full mental engagement throughout their 15-minute conversations. She represented the beauty of maturity, experience, and uncompromising personality. Johnny once shared at a private gathering that if the world collapsed, the first person he'd want to call was Loren Bacall. Not for comfort, but to hear her scold him and tell him to get up and solve the problem. That was Loren's strength, not needing sweet fragrance to attract, but using steely toughness to assert her position. After every show with Loren Bacall, Johnny often sat longer on the couch, sometimes pondering a profound statement she'd made. To Johnny, Loren Bacall was the standard for true womanhood, beauty residing not in appearance but in every word and an uncopiable presence. Loren Bacall stands at the final position among these 7 roses because she was the richest, most unforgettable conclusion. She represented enduring luxury and sophistication, proving to Johnny Carson that intelligence is beauty's most seductive form. 7 women, 7 different expressions of excellence created the most brilliant chapters in Johnny Carson's legendary career. From Ann-Margret's understanding warmth to Catherine Deneuve's cool sophistication, Julie Andrews' pure grace, Jacqueline Bisset's timeless elegance, Sophia Loren's vibrant passion, Grace Kelly's untouchable perfection, and Loren Bacall's commanding intelligence. They proved a fundamental truth. In Johnny Carson's world, beauty was merely the beginning. Intelligence, authenticity, and strength were what earned eternal admiration. This collection closes as tribute to a golden generation of stars who, alongside Johnny Carson, transformed television nights into something magical and unforgettable.